Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Shiloh Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about parenting for life. Honestly, I have been shocked recently that parenting never ends. When I have adult kids now, and most of them, half of them are adults, and I have half of them still at home, it's shocking to me how difficult it has been, and also very rewarding at the same time, parenting adult kids. So today, I thought as a group, we're all kind of in the struggle together of
the struggle is real.
How to parent adult kids. And so we thought maybe that this would be helpful and encouraging, and we have some really cool testimonies. So one thing is, what does parenting for life look like? I think for me, I have been just going with the question of, I don't think parenting ever ends. I think we're going to continue parenting, whether it's our own kids or maybe even spiritual kids. My heart has been changing that I am a parent, and I'm going to parent until I die.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, it's been kind of a wrestling thing with me and the Lord. And I thought, you know what? This was who I am. I'm called as a mom. I'm mom of the faith. And so I'm going to parent, whether it's my own kids or spiritual kids, as much as I'm yelling and screaming and kicking and all along the way. But I think what it's cool is it's a tool from the Lord to use to soften my heart and to get areas out of me that are not good. So
to continue die to self process,
which is like marriage will do, right? Marriage does the same exact thing. And so we've been dialoguing of what is raising a child versus parenting a child look like. Lawrence, you had some really good thoughts on what is the difference if you're...
Well, I think, the question popped in my head as I was a minister, not necessarily, I was in a conversation. You know how people come to you and you're engaged in a conversation and you can feel them asking questions, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, I have some adult kids, I have some young kids, I have a marriage. People look at that and may find, okay, what is that? How does that happen? And the question that popped in my head was, is there a difference between just raising a kid versus parenting a kid? And it's a study that I haven't quite, it's part of my journal dialogue that I'm dialoguing with the Lord. Is there a difference? And I think the fundamental difference in my mind was, I can keep kids alive. I can feed them. I can get them a bath. I can put them on the bus. Totally. I can send them to school. I can go to school. I can do all these things just to keep them alive. And that's raising a kid, sending child support, but not being involved.
Right.
I'm responsible and accountable for making sure the child is alive, right? But parenting is a whole nother level of something that I know for us, we're learning. We're still learning. And I would say for me, the older I get, the more I'm aware that I don't like just here's some rules.
Right.
Because my strong-willed children, they're going to buck the rule every time. First thing they're going to do is buck the rule. My children that are not as strong-willed, but carry a different set of gifts are going to just obey. But really, when it's just rules, you never really get at the heart.
Right.
You just get behavior modification.
Right. Exactly. Well, and then for us, what we've encountered is at times behavior modification, but then you end up having a kid just freak out and you have them, extrovert or just really get into a trouble. And then you realize as a parent, you beat a rule down their throat, but you never lay the foundation of understanding the value for that rule. And so I think as a parent, when we encounter that, we have to realize, step back, we've got to actually create the reasons why this is in place. Why
that's
is that
work?
Yes,
but you got to stop doing what you want.
And as a parent, sometimes I don't even know why that rule's there. And I have to be challenged myself. Like, is that even a good rule in the first place?
Yeah.
Or what's driving me and trying to discover what the real value is in order to communicate. So I think for us, it's been a hard thing that for us to have family values, to discover what are some values that we really as a family want to have, and how do we teach our kids and it not be rule-based.
So good. Yes, because I think that you nailed it when it's about their heart. And if we get caught up in the logistics of right and wrong rules and all that, then we can totally miss their heart. And it's like reading the room. You have to know what's getting in and what's not getting in. They don't understand the value. So a lot of times I made it a practice, still do, but it happens less. But that, especially at teenage years and early 20s, that if there's intense fellowship about a subject, then I circle back around when everybody's calmed down. Like, okay, let's just talk about this. Everybody's calmed down. We're a little heated right now. We're not getting anywhere. We're just arguing.
Yeah. You're totally not.
Yeah. Let's just circle back. And so it gives us time to reflect and process. And so the next morning, usually I would come back around and say, hey, can we talk about this? I misrepresented myself. I apologize for anything I might have said, you know, in the process. But just I want to hear your heart. What's your value? What are you seeing? What do you think I'm saying? So I think with adult kids specifically, that's the work.
Yeah.
Following up.
Right.
Like it's not about the initial conversation as much as what are we walking out here as a family and why?
Right.
And why is it important not just to follow up about the subject, but to set a precedent and a value for circling back around. That we don't leave things open-ended and heated, or even if it's just mildly irritating. Like we want to make sure that we're showing them, well, this is how you're going to do it with your kid.
Right.
So there's twofold, whatever the main issue is and the habit.
That's good.
That you're creating.
I love that.
Of intentionally loving them.
That's right.
And reminding them what the value is for what you're doing and letting them know you want to know that you're being heard, that they're being heard and you're being heard.
So it sounds to me like it's and I have this on the list, is communication skills. How are we as families, one, creating values, communicating those values, but allowing people and teaching our kids how to communicate? I know that we've been communicating a lot with one particular kid recently and helping him process and communicate with people that he cares about outside of our family. And so I feel like where do you get that from, Lawrence? Like, how do you teach a kid good communication skills?
Well, I will tell you, I said this to someone earlier, like the man named Danny Silk began to teach things to us 20 years ago. And I will tell you, if you don't know who Danny Silk is, you should go to Keep Your Love On and look up Danny Silk and consume as much material as you can from that gentleman, because there is something about me being in church for as long as I've been in church, and I understand and know about God, but to actually practically process who God has called me to be with another human being requires communication.
Wow.
And the goal of communication is not to agree,
right,
but to understand. There is no understanding if I'm not trying to hear my child.
Wow.
So for us, if we use the word discipline or spanking in our household, when a child gets to the age of 5 or 6, we should be communicating.
Yep.
Understanding and being able to dialogue should take the place of any capital punishment that might have happened, whether it's a spanking. A spanking is used in my household to catch my attention. Do you hear my voice? What did you hear me say? Right? You said not to do that. Okay, great. So this is what's going to happen if you do it. Right? I want to train the child to pay attention to my voice. But then once they can comprehend what's going on in you, that you were able to do that.
Wow.
Well, did the Holy Spirit tell you not to do? Now I'm processing, right? I am in the discipline process, right? So discipline in an early age may look like a small spanking to catch attention. But then when the child begins to comprehend and understand, now it's discipleship.
That's right.
Changing, right? But then when you get to this adult.
Right. That's when the fruit comes out.
Well, now your communication skills become so precedent. And I found I became a better communicator when I changed my heart.
That's good.
I had a desire to hear what you're saying. I want to hear what you're saying. And if I keep asking questions to a child in a way to hear, I'm going to inevitably help them search out why they did what they did.
Right.
And do they understand the value? We have a value that you be courageous.
That's right.
And so when you lie, that's not courageous. That's the opposite of being courageous, right?
That's good.
That one thing we've exercised, throughout, our whole life. So
that's good. So Danny Silk, Keep Your Love On is phenomenal. Books, resources, podcasts, all that. I watch it personally myself a ton. It's great from a relational perspective for marriages, parenting, being a grandparent, a sister, or a brother, a friend, all those things. It's just all just phenomenal stuff. Pam, you talked about how that you really want to, you said something earlier that really kind of caught my attention, that the goal of parenting is to also allow your kids to believe in themselves, for them, that you as a parent need to help them really
What's
have
your
that
role in their
understanding.
identity? You said something like
You
that.
said something like that
That's,
I thought was really powerful.
That is something that from the Eldridge's ministry, from Captivating and Wild at Heart, that they really push on identity and the phrase, they help each other, and Dustin and I help each other with this question: what does your kid need to hear from you?
Wow.
And the answer is that I believe in them. Ultimately, when we're locking horns, that's really what we need to come back to, that mindset that my kid is an adult. We've raised them, we poured into them, and now they need to know that I believe that all that stuff is good. That's faith in what Jesus has deposited in their lives throughout the upbringing.
That's right.
So a lot of times I just circle back around and just let them know that, hey, this is your identity. This is who you are. This is your purpose. This is how God made you. And I believe in you. And it's going to work out. It's going to be okay. You might not be able to see it right now, but I know you and I know what's in you.
That's powerful.
And you feel like just your ability to stay connected to, what you believe about them and their identity, if I'm understanding you right, you're feeling like that's parenting.
Yes, because the opposite is saying, like, I don't have faith in the Lord and I don't have faith in you to accomplish anything good, and you therefore need my help and you need me to yell at you or direct you or guide you. Yeah. So there's a point when your kids are old enough to comprehend all these things, and then they become powerful people in their own right. And you may not choose to use that set of skills and abilities the same way, but they have them, and they need to go out and they need to do the things. And so then it also sets you up to be the consultant, because then they're going to come to you and ask for help because they're not feeling judged.
Right.
And I'm not saying I do this perfectly. This is my goal.
It's true.
This is my goal.
Real.
Like that I love on them and encourage them so they feel safe to come ask.
That's good.
Where they're not going to be condemned and judged. And why did you do that, you idiot? I can't believe you screwed that up. Because those are the things I don't want to hear.
No, not at all.
So yeah, I think that just having that mindset is so freeing for me when I remember, like, oh yeah, this is my role as a parent.
Right.
Of adult children,
Adult children, for sure. Yeah. And, I got a text message, over the holiday weekend of a dear friend of mine and just being frustrated as a grandparent seeing your kids discipline and just thinking, I would just encourage her, but thinking
they're doing it wrong.
They're doing it wrong. But the instruction was, hey, just love them, believe in them, encourage them, support them. You're now you're there as a consultant. You're not able to manage and discipline at this point, right? You are there just to be that huge support and believe and encourage them. And I hope that was freeing for her. And as we are stepping into being grandparents, I know we're going to encounter that ourselves. And you experience the level of grace from God at a new level as you step into all these different roles in your life, which is really great.
Well, I remember Chris Valentin making his statement. You know how it is. You hear somebody say something and it's like this thing burns in your brain. I know Chris is so genuine and authentic. He is an active grandfather. And he says this while he's preaching one day. He goes, the grandparent's role is just to reinforce the family values.
That's it.
You are not the disciplinarian. You are not the one that's responsible for training. You contribute to reinforce the core values of family.
That's so good.
And so, man, that was so interesting to me because then it gave me an opportunity, particularly where I'm loving on friends and families that are grandparents that may be frustrated. It's like, what do you see happening? What's valuable? And the way you treat the kid is different than the way you treat the parent.
Right.
But both could be loving.
Right.
Hey, I'm so sorry that I know you're mad at mom or dad.
Yeah.
Let's just pray for him. Maybe God will help him.
Yeah.
But you need to love him and you need to listen. Hey, how are you doing? Little Johnny was pretty upset. Are you okay? Are you thinking, I'm in this role where my role as a coach, a consultant, is to say, what are you experiencing? Where are you in the journey? And try to figure out, we're like, what do they need to hear from me? I believe in you.
That's
You're
right.
valuable.
That's right. That's so good. So I think, Pam, you had a testimony, I guess, of encountering your adult kids and the impact on your emotions in the midst of that. And so tell us a little bit. I thought it was a
Yes.
brilliant
Well, I
brilliant
think
testimony.
I don't know if you were alluding to this when you were talking about how surprisingly hard it is, but it's managing disappointment for me
Wow.
is hard.
Right.
So I recently had a day where I had some spiritual children disappoint me, hurt my feelings, and then both of my kids, and that it was all in one day, and I teared up. It was like late at night, 9 o'clock, something like that. I'm tired and I'm just like over it. Right. And so I teared up and Dustin looks at me. I can tell he's like, what do I do?
My wife is crying.
Yeah,
My wife is crying.
How do I help
What do I
him?
do? My wife is crying.
And I just reassured, I was like, I'm okay. I just need a minute because, the phrase pops out of my mouth that, realizing you care about other people more than they care about you is really hard. But at the same time, it's my highest privilege as a mom
Wow.
because
That's
that is my job.
That's a hard
It's not
tension.
their job.
Wow.
But yeah,
What
so
is,
it's,
can you say it again? What,
that
what's your job?
to be in the role of being able to manage my disappointment and in a way that doesn't judge them, doesn't condemn them from their free will. Because no one did anything wrong. They just made choices that were a rejection of some ideas I had for us to be together.
Oh,
So
okay.
no one did anything wrong. But it was like, oh, I'm tired. Like one right after another. And so sometimes it's like you're managing your disappointment, your own hurt as a parent. And you realize like you're the one who loves them unconditionally. And that's the parental part, right?
Wow.
Because they don't understand that yet. And it's always going that direction. I remember my mom saying something similar to me and was like, I was little and she was talking about loving my grandma and loving my mom. And she said something about, do you think that my love and care for her is different than my love and care for you? And immediately I knew it was different. Wow. And I kind of had this in my head, like, oh, that's being a mom because you're the one making sacrifices for the kid. You don't really maybe when your parents are older, make sacrifices, but not to the same degree where you're putting yourself out there and you're leading the family, you're bringing the values, you're setting the events, right? This is what we do.
Yep.
Or in a crisis, this is what we do. We help, we come around, we pray for you. You're the one that's setting the standards and the values and the culture of the family. And so then when it's not all lining up, and sometimes it's like frustrating.
Right.
And you're like, but I'm going to keep doing it.
Right.
I'm going to keep showing up.
Right.
And
so
nobody needs to be rebuked or, nothing needs to happen. I just have to manage me.
Yeah.
But sometimes it just doesn't work out that way.
Right. That's good.
Yeah. But I'm not going to stop.
That's
Yeah.
good. Wow.
Reinforcing what I heard you, when you keyed in on something, you said, that's my job. And what I heard you say was your job is to be the example of what it looks like for unconditional love to be in the house.
I laid my life down.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And if you need help remembering that, you have a culture of people around you that are going to remind you, hey, you're just disappointed. Go back and love that child. Let them be free to do whatever they want.
That's right. Totally. So question for you, Lawrence. How did you, in the past and currently, how are you establishing values for the kids to see? I mean, are you making those really clearly known? Is it just popping up in conversations?
Sometimes, listen, one of the things that I've become aware of, your values, Charles Patterson said this to me one time. He goes, everybody's living out their values. They just don't know it.
Wow.
They are not in touch with why their behavior is showing up. So many times in our own household, I've learned there are two very specific sets of emotions that show up when a value is present. I'm furious or I'm exuberantly happy. The extreme of both ends. When I get to those places, if I will just stop, do a little self-reflection, I'm going to figure out, why am I furious? Because somebody stepped on one of my values.
Right.
Then the next set of questions is, well, did I make those known? Number two, does anyone aware around me have any idea that's a value that I have?
Wow.
Because if I haven't communicated that to no one, they don't know, what is he freaking out about? Like, right? Vice versa. I'm super excited. Oh my God, this has just happened to me. Why am I so? Then I step back. What's making me so happy? Then I look at the person and say, I need you to know I really appreciate this. You did this, and then I felt that. It's you being in touch with you, and then as a married couple, you and Dustin, like, how does this impact our family?
Right.
And what do we want? Because I'm a firm believer that if values are strong in a household, there's less need for rules. Rules and regulations are external government.
Right.
We believe in a powerful God that is alive inside of us. We want an internal government.
Right.
And when I line myself up with the values of the kingdom of God, right? A father who loved us enough to sacrifice his own son so that we might experience his love and be with him forever. He was willing to sacrifice his, so that love is set up in all of the kingdom, and the whole Bible reveals the nature of God. Right. So to the best of my ability, I'm testing my own self, and I'm looking in the scriptures to find out how was I was created in the image of God. How does it line up with the kingdom values? And then to the best of my ability, I communicate those.
Right.
The most difficult thing for me, and I would imagine many of us, like, I see my value in my Christianity and how I live, and I'm not requiring my older children to live it the way I live it. And I do get disappointed.
Right.
I do see them doing things that I would rather them not do.
Right.
And I have a ridiculous value for freedom. And that, for me, those are the tensions that I experience. Like, my value for freedom says, you are free to run right into that brick wall that I told you was there. And I'm not going to come back and say, I told you so.
Right. Which is very different,
At least I try anyway.
Right. Very different parenting than what I grew up with. I was stopped before hitting that brick wall, even as a high schooler or adult, versus being allowed the freedom to experience that. And so there's lots of different types of parenting styles out there, new styles, old styles, all of that. But what I hear you saying is that the Babins have a high level of freedom. And with that freedom and that value, it also can be painful at the same time.
I remember, again, other families' culture in their household starts to impact yours
Totally.
when you have adult children, right? And I remember one family member of a friend of one of my kids came to me. She says, you guys, this is all, people who love the Lord, are like, you guys don't seem to care that they're engaging in this behavior. And I said, no, you're wrong. We do care.
We do
it's
care.
grievous.
Yeah.
And they're free.
Right.
They're that's not going to go well for them. So I'm not saying let your kid run into a brick wall, or your adult child go run into a brick wall if they don't see a brick wall. I have a question. Are you aware there's a wall right there? I just want, you're driving your car straight, I just want to make you aware there's a wall there. Yeah, I don't care. Okay, great. No problem. Right? Yeah. Keep driving.
Right.
No, there's no wall there. There's a hole. I can get through it. Okay.
Well, and that's where it goes when they're younger, when they're a toddler and, young elementary years and middle school, you are discipling them to see those walls, and you're helping them try to understand values, and you're trying to create freedom and communication and understanding their identity all through those years. So hopefully there's not many walls that they're going to hit when they're adults.
Yeah.
But they still do it.
They do. And then the communication, and again, is a Danny Silk thing of, hey, we talked about this. We disagree about this, but I'm going to support you. And like we said, I'm not going to say I told you so. Taking it a step further and saying, if it doesn't work out, I'll help you clean up your mess.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's really loving someone through it. So then you're protecting them as a parent from shame and condemnation.
That's right.
Big mess to clean up.
That's correct.
I didn't listen to my parents. I hurt people. I did and then you're helping them. Okay, now we need to manage how that shame is trying to come in and the condemnation. Then how do you repair the relationships you hurt?
Wow.
Maybe some apologies need to be made, or maybe you need to ask for forgiveness. So anyway, there's more parenting in the messes than in preventing the messes.
Well,
that's good.
Again, the parenting in the messes is part of modeling.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I want my child to understand what it looks like to confess and repent and ask for forgiveness. But if I never do it, they don't know what that looks like. And so I want them to do what I said. But the truth is, they're going to do what you do.
That's right.
The children are
model
going to
you.
do what you do. The most influential people in their lives for the first, 2 decades of their lives are the people they live in the household with.
Right.
So even talking about the brick wall, I feel like I need to mention, like, when my child is 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, if they're managing themselves in a way that they may hit a brick wall and cause damage to everyone else, I'm probably going to be a lot stronger about, I'm telling you there's a wall there and I'm going to hold you right now. Because if you hit that wall, you're going to hurt everybody else, right? So I have a responsibility
To train
when
them.
they're in my household to try to prevent, because I was thinking about your statement about you were stopped from hitting brick walls.
Yeah.
There are times when that's appropriate. If you hitting a brick wall is going to cause damage to innocent people, right? That, I'm not going to allow, a young adult that has a drinking problem to drink and drive with my children in the car.
Right.
We're going to shut that down, right? You want to drink and drive by yourself and be stupid, I pray you don't.
Right.
But you're not, my children are not going in the car.
Right.
So there are places where we have to come in and be a little heavier handed.
Sure.
But for the most part, with the adult children, you just have to say, if I have a value, if they're asking me a question, I have a value. And in my own kids' lives and my spiritual children, I give unsolicited advice at times.
They get it whether they
I
like it or
just
not.
want you to know that could be painful. And have you thought about that? Yes, I hear you. Okay, what did you hear me say? And if someone can say to me, I heard you say these things and I'm aware, I feel so good about that because they were able to verbalize what they heard. I feel heard. I feel valuable in the relationship. And then I'm willing to help clean up the mess.
Wow.
Those are the things that when you have to go and help your kid clean up a mess. I heard Terry Standifer say this one time. Oh my gosh, it broke my brain. He was like, I realized I have been the biggest impediment to someone's success because I have been with them cleaning up messes most of their lives. So I remember all the messes they made. So I'm afraid they're going to make another mess.
Right.
And he said, you have got to release
Wow.
and let them go because you could hold them back because you've been cleaning messes with them all their lives.
Yes, that is hard.
Oh.
It's hard. I experienced that with one of our kids where there was, I wanted them to work and to develop work ethics and to like have little entry level jobs along the way. And there was a resistance to that. I just want to go to school. It's too stressful. Okay, la, la, la. And I kept getting all the things. And then, school stretched out longer than we thought it would. And so it was like, okay, I'm sitting there thinking of all the messes. Is this person ever going to be able to hold a job, work, and learn work ethics, learn how to be in social settings, learn all that. And then all of a sudden, and I just said this the other day to one of my friends, I realized they've been learning that from me.
Wow.
And then they get in the job place and are doing great. And so I'm like, all the fear that you're talking about as a parent, because you've seen their mistakes, you've seen their consistent character, problems with their character that they haven't persevered through yet. And you're like, oh, this could go so bad. And you get so focused on the outcomes that could be bad. Right. And then it's train up a child in the way they should go. And when they're old, they're not. And then I realized like, there's all this blossom is coming to life and all these great things are coming out. Wow. So I think that is such a wise statement that you do have to let go and stop judging them by their past. They were children. They were babies.
I know.
And then one thing I use with my kids when they were around 18, 19 is like, I know, Mom, because I'm an adult or what. And I'm like, yes, but I don't know that you realize you're a toddler adult. Like you just became an adult.
A toddler adult.
Like you're a brand new one.
I feel good. So my family, there's a few things, in your temperaments and your character with your family. I always encourage people, let your kids see the cues and the signs where you're just, I'm just going to tell you how I'm doing, right? I'm not saying right or wrong. Like, I see something like that where they're like, oh, I know, Dad. It's like, okay, well, you're scaring me.
Yes.
I am now officially afraid of what you're doing.
Right.
I'm just verbalizing it.
Right.
I will confess my fear as sin. I will be praying for you.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Now, a lot of times it's a joke in our household, but at the same time, it's real. Or they do something and then we look at them and go, now, what did you learn? Right. It's a joke. But at the same time, it's reinforcing values.
That's right.
Another one in my household is a smart man learns from his mistakes. but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others.
That's right.
Right? You don't
say that a
have to
lot.
go fit. We say it a lot. A lot. Right?
You don't have to touch the flame to know that that's
No.
bad.
No.
I saw the wound on the other guy's hand when he put his hand in the fire.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
at the same time, I'm always reminded of Jesus allowed Thomas to touch the hole in his hand. People could criticize Thomas all they want. What I see in there is the love of Christ.
That's right.
Christ said Thomas needed to touch the hole in his hand
That's right.
in order for him to experience the truth of reality. And so you have children that are going to need to go and experience things on their own. That is for their development, and they are going to learn from their mistakes, and it's okay.
Right.
Then you have other kids that are going to show up and go, I am not doing what you did. If I can help them focus on just go do what you know is right.
Right.
Don't focus on not doing the wrong, but using the wrong to leverage,
Right.
right? That looked like a mistake. What did you do? How do I do it right?
Right.
Because the tragedy or the hitting the brick wall or, running the car off the street, all those things that we would consider messes. In those messes, it's like, I don't want that mess.
Right.
But that's not the gold.
That's not the gold.
The gold is, what could we have done different in that mess? And how can I learn from it, right? So that, and learn the values, right?
That's good.
It is.
That's awesome. I think for me as a parent too, how do you work that muscle of not allowing your kids' messes to be a direct reflection of you as a parent?
They're shaming me.
Because that is really hard. And I've seen that in my own life where I have actually parented to keep something negative from being an impact on me versus just allowing my kids to experience or make a mess, and not feeling the shame or the guilt as a parent that it was my fault. Like, how do you deal with that?
That's a good question. That is another one of those hard things that you're having to manage yourself. Because that's your problem.
Right.
That's not their problem. And realizing that, I think, is the first step. Like when you're going, oh, this is about me. This is about my reputation or how I look or am perceived.
Right.
Especially as pastors, right? There's like a whole stigma around what PKs
Exactly.
should be doing. Yeah.
True.
So yeah, and that is an inner work of just releasing them and constant. I mean, it's a continual work of like, even with your spouse, like their behavior is not a reflection of who I am.
Wow.
And yeah, that's not easy. It's simple to say, but it's not easy to always experience that because they are out there in the world doing their thing, and they are a reflection on
That's right.
your family and your culture.
Yeah.
I was going to say that for me, as embarrassing as something that I've been through some very embarrassing things with my children.
Yes.
And I've stood up and go, yep, that goofball did that, and I sure love him. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
here we are.
Right.
And is it my fault? Of course it is. Accountability, it's not that it's my family. I'm the leader. And so when I accept accountability for all of it, then in the accountability is covering. And in covering, you're protected from shame. So I'm not going to allow shame to distance me from my children's messes.
Right.
We're all a family. And it's a very difficult thing for people to do because they take it personally. All the, whatever my child does, in a small city or in a school, now all of a sudden, all these parents have the opportunity to say whatever. I hear it all the time from people, right? You're in a small town, people are talking. Well, it doesn't matter. What matters is that's my kid and they made a mess. Dang. And I'm proud of them. We're going to figure this out. They're going to clean up their mess because that's what we believe.
Right.
Is it my fault? Maybe. I'm not going to allow shame and guilt to redefine who we believe we are,
Right.
even in the midst of a mess.
Right. That's awesome.
And that's a hard thing to teach people to do, let alone, requiring somebody to be that. Because I have learned in my life, the messes, there's gold. There's always gold somewhere in that mess. Now,
That's so good.
repeating the same thing over and over again,
Right.
that's stupid.
Yeah.
That's just dumb.
And you've said that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you've said that.
Do
Like,
it
this is
once,
not
do it
smart.
twice, no big deal. Do it a third time, you're dumb.
Right.
What's wrong with you? I go straight to guilt and shame.
Well, Chris Valentin has this quote, and I don't know, I can't remember the exact quote, but it essentially is like, you're always going to have messes in your life. You don't have to do it alone. You have a family
That's
to always be
correct.
with you
I
in the
agree.
process of that. And
100%.
I think, and I've said that a couple times to the kids, like, when they've showed up with a mess that looks big, and I'm like, you've been trying to deal with this by yourself. You have your family to help you with that. And you don't have to feel disconnected. You don't have to feel isolated. You have a family to help you, because you're always going to have problems, but then you don't have a problem as big as your family. And that's essentially what Chris Valentin
so
says.
good.
Your problems are not as big as what your family can help you with.
That's so good.
And so I think what that does is it hits the lie that, one, you have to be isolated, you have to be alone, or your family's going to be ashamed of you. The reality is you are going to have problems in life, but not big enough for that your family can't help you.
That's so good.
true.
It's so important to build that culture that we do have a family, and that's part of what we all leave a legacy for. We work hard to build that culture that you have a family and you have a church family,
That's right.
and that's the importance of this hard work. This is why we're having this conversation right now. It's what we're passing on, the culture of having a family and having the protection that comes with that.
That's so good. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you, Shiloh family. And thank you for coming along with the journey of parenting for life. And we hope you have a wonderful and blessed day.
Bless you.